Caleb Thornton's hammer froze mid-strike when he heard it 3 desperate knocks cutting through the howling blizzard. He'd stopped answering his door 2 years ago, the night he buried his wife and daughter. But something about those knocks, weak and fading, pulled him from his forge. When he opened that door, 4 pairs of eyes stared back, a woman on her knees, 3 children blue with cold, and a choice that would either destroy him or save what was left of his soul. Before we continue, if you believe in second chances and the power of family, subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. Stay with us until the very end. This story will break your heart and put it back together. And comment below with the city you're watching from. Let's see how far Caleb and Rebecca's story travels across this world. The fire in the forge burned low embers, gasping their last breath like dying stars. Caleb didn't add more coal. What was the point? The horseshoe he'd been shaping for 3 hours sat crooked on the anvil, a failure like everything else he touched lately. His hammer hung loose in his right hand, the weight of it familiar but meaningless. He used to love this, the rhythm, the heat, the transformation of raw metal into something useful. Margaret used to bring him coffee while he worked her laugh cutting through the clang of steel. Sarah would stand in the doorway covering her ears, but grinning, wanting to be near her papa, even when the noise scared her. Now the forge was silent, except for the wind screaming through the cracks in the walls. Caleb set the hammer down and flexed his scarred fingers. The burns never fully healed, not the ones on his hands, not the ones in his chest. He'd tried working through the grief, tried hammering it into submission, like stubborn iron. But grief wasn't metal. It didn't bend. It didn't transform. It just sat there cold and immovable, taking up space where warmth used to live. He should close up for the night. The blizzard had been building since noon, and now it roared with the fury of something personal, something that wanted inside. Snow piled against the workshop walls in drifts taller than a man. The temperature had dropped so fast, his breath came out in clouds even near the forge. Caleb grabbed his coat, heavy buffalo hide that smelled like smoke and old leather. He was reaching for the door when he heard it. Knock, knock, knock. He froze. It came from the cabin, not the workshop. Someone was at his front door. In this storm. At night. No, he said aloud to the empty room. No, no, no. Nobody came out here. Not anymore. Not since Knock. Knock. Weaker this time. Desperate. Caleb's jaw tightened. He could ignore it. Should ignore it. The last person who knocked on his door brought a letter from the army saying his brother died at Little Bighorn. Before that, it was Doc Abernathy telling him Margaret and Sarah were gone, that the fever had taken them before dawn, that he'd been too late coming back from his scouting contract. Doors brought bad news. Doors brought loss. Knock. One more. Barely audible over the wind. Then nothing. Damn it! Caleb crossed the distance between the workshop and cabin in heavy strides, snow soaking through his boots. The cold bit at his face, sharp as broken glass. He couldn't see 5 feet ahead. White everywhere. The blizzard swallowed sound and sight, turned the world into a void. He reached the cabin door and stopped, hand on the iron latch. Don't open it. Whatever's out there, let it go. You can't save anyone. You proved that already. But his hand moved anyway, lifting the latch, pulling the door inward. The woman collapsed into his arms before he could step back. She wasn't heavy, too light, actually, all bone and willpower. Her coat hung on her like a shroud, frozen stiff, crusted with ice that tore at his hands when he caught her. She gasped, trying to speak, but her lips were cracked and bleeding, her words lost in chattering teeth. Behind her, 3 shapes huddled in the doorway. Children. Caleb's heart stopped. The oldest boy, maybe 9, held a smaller boy against his chest. Both of them shook violently, their faces pale as corpses. But it was the little girl that made Caleb's breath catch. She hung limp in the oldest boy's other arm, head lolling, eyes closed, a rag doll in a threadbare dress. Please. The woman whispered the word, scraping out of her throat like it cost her everything. Please, children, save. Then her eyes rolled back and she went slack in his arms. Christ! Caleb hauled her inside, kicked the door wider. "You boys get in here now." The older boy didn't move. His eyes, huge and dark with fear, locked onto Caleb's face. "You gonna hurt us?" His voice cracked, but he stood his ground, body angled to protect his siblings. "What no kid, get inside before you freeze to death." "Wyatt?" The middle boy whimpered. "I can't feel my feet." That broke the standoff. Wyatt stumbled forward, dragging his brother, the little girl still cradled against his chest. Caleb grabbed them all, pulled them across the threshold, slammed the door against the storm. The cabin plunged into sudden, shocking quiet. Caleb's mind raced old cavalry training kicking in before conscious thought could catch up. Hypothermia. Frostbite. How long had they been out there? Their clothes were frozen solid. The girl wasn't moving. "Stove, now!" He carried the woman to the chair nearest the fire, then wheeled back to the boys. "You, Wyatt, get those wet clothes off. All of you. Don't argue, just do it." "But Lily..." Wyatt's voice broke completely. "She won't wake up. She won't... Give her to me." Caleb took the little girl with hands that had forgotten how to be gentle. She weighed nothing. Her skin was blue-white, lips purple. He couldn't tell if she was breathing. "Sarah. Oh God, she looks like Sarah." "No." He said it out loud, sharp and mean. "Not now. Not that memory." "Wyatt. Your name, Wyatt." The boy nodded, tears freezing on his cheeks. "Wyatt, I need you to listen. You did good getting her here. You're a brave kid. But now you gotta trust me. Understand, I'm gonna help her, but you gotta get your brother warm first. Can you do that?" Wyatt stared at him for a long moment, then nodded again. This time with something like hope cracking through the fear. Caleb laid Lily on the rug in front of the stove, close but not too close. Her dress crackled when he moved her, ice shattering. He grabbed every blanket he owned, piled them on top of her, except for her face. Then he leaned down, ear near her mouth. Nothing. "Come on, sweetheart. Come on." He tilted her head back, gently, pinched her nose, breathed into her mouth. Once, twice, 3 times. Her chest rose and fell with his breath, but didn't continue on its own. "No." He pressed 2 fingers to her neck, searching for a pulse. "No, no, no, there. There. Faint, slow, but there." He breathed into her mouth again, watched her chest rise, willed her to come back. 4 breaths. 5. She coughed. It was the most beautiful sound Caleb had heard in 2 years. Lily's eyes fluttered open, confused, unfocused, and she coughed again, harder, her small body convulsing. Caleb rolled her onto her side, held her steady while she gasped and wheezed, fighting her way back to consciousness. "That's it. That's it. You're okay. You're gonna be okay." She whimpered a thin sound like a wounded animal, and Caleb's vision blurred. He blinked hard, forced himself to focus. The woman, the boys, Wyatt and the middle boy, Jesse maybe? The woman had gasped something that sounded like Jesse stood naked except for their undergarments, which were also soaked. Both of them shook so hard their teeth clattered. Caleb grabbed 2 more blankets from the chest by the wall and wrapped them up rough but efficient. "Sit by the fire. Don't get too close, you'll burn before you warm. Just sit." They obeyed without question, 2 skinny kids folding into each other, like they'd done it 1,000 times before. Caleb turned back to the woman. She'd slumped sideways in the chair, unconscious but breathing. Her coat crackled when he peeled it off, frozen through, worthless. Underneath, she wore a dress that might have been nice once before it became a rag. Her hands were the worst, blistered, bleeding fingernails torn down to the quick, like she'd clawed her way here through bare rock. He'd seen frostbite in the cavalry. This was bad. Not lose the fingers bad, but close. Ma'am, can you hear me?" Nothing. Caleb grabbed a clean cloth, dipped it in the water bucket cold, but not frozen, and dabbed at her hands. She didn't flinch. He dried them carefully, wrapped them in soft flannel. Then he covered her with his own coat, the one Margaret had sewn for him before she died, and stepped back. 4 people, half frozen, in his cabin, looking at him like he was the answer to something. He wasn't. He was barely a question. Mr. Wyatt's voice small and scared. Is Mama gonna die? Caleb looked at the boy. Really looked. 9 years old with eyes that had seen too much. Shoulders set like he was ready to fight God himself if it meant protecting his family. No, Caleb said, and he meant it. She's not gonna die. None of you are. Not tonight. Wyatt's face crumpled, relief and exhaustion hitting him all at once. He buried his face in his brother's shoulder and shook silently. Caleb turned away, gave them privacy for their breaking. He moved to the kitchen area, really just a corner with a stove and a shelf, and started pulling down supplies. Dried beef, hardtack, coffee, not much else. He hadn't been shopping in weeks, months maybe. Food didn't taste like anything anyway, but kids needed food. Frozen kids needed warm food. He got the big pot, filled it with water, set it on the stove to heat. Threw in the beef, some salt, a handful of wild onions he'd dug up last fall and forgotten about. It'd be thin, but it'd be hot. While the water heated, he checked on Lily. Her color was better, less blue, more pale. She breathed easier now, deeper. Her eyes tracked him when he leaned over her, unfocused but aware. You're safe, he told her, keeping his voice low and steady. I know you're scared, but you're safe now. She blinked. One tear slid down her temple into her hair. Caleb's chest constricted. He reached out, hesitated, then gently brushed the tear away with his thumb. I got you, little one. I got you. Behind him the woman stirred, a moan soft and pained. Caleb stood and moved to her side. Her eyes opened, green and sharp despite the exhaustion. She stared at him for a moment, confusion giving way to panic. Children, where? Here, they're here, all 3 of them. You got them to safety. She turned her head, saw the boys by the fire, saw Lily on the floor under the blankets. Her whole body sagged with relief, so profound it looked like pain. Thank God. Thank God. Her voice cracked. I thought when Lily stopped moving, I thought, she's breathing. They're all breathing. You got them here in time. The woman closed her eyes, and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. Not tears of sadness. Tears of a soul that had been carrying a weight too heavy to bear, and finally got to set it down. I don't even know where here is. She opened her eyes again, looked at Caleb with something close to wonder. Who are you? Name's Caleb Thornton. Rebecca Hartwell. She tried to sit up straighter, winced. We were wagon broke down 2 days ago, east of Devil's Pass. I couldn't carry all 3. I had to keep moving. Had to find somewhere. Devil's Pass. Caleb's jaw tightened. That's 20 miles from here. Is it? Rebecca looked down at her hands wrapped in flannel and laughed a broken sound with no humor in it. Felt like 1,000. 20 miles, in a blizzard, with 3 small children. Half of grown men wouldn't survive that. This woman had done it on will alone. Your husband, Caleb said carefully. He with the wagon. Rebecca's face went blank. Cold. Colder than the storm outside. I don't have a husband. The way she said it, flat final, told Caleb everything he needed to know. There had been a husband. There wasn't any more. And wherever he was, Rebecca Hartwell had decided he didn't exist. Fair enough. The soup started to boil. Caleb ladled it into 4 tin cups, watered it down so it wouldn't burn their mouths, and brought it to the children first. Wyatt took his cup with both hands, held it to his chest like a treasure. Thank you, sir. Just Caleb. He handed the second cup to Jessie, who grabbed it and drank immediately, gasping at the heat, but not stopping. Easy. You'll make yourself sick. Jessie slowed down, eyes never leaving the cup. Lily couldn't sit up yet, so Caleb knelt beside her and helped her drink one careful sip at a time. She watched him the whole time, solemn and silent, like she was memorizing his face. Finally, he brought a cup to Rebecca. She took it with trembling hands and sipped slowly, her eyes closing in something close to bliss. "I can't remember the last time something tasted this good," she whispered. "It's just broth. It's life." She looked at him over the rim of the cup. "You saved us. I don't know why you opened that door, but you saved us." Caleb didn't know what to say to that. He'd stopped believing in saving people 2 years ago. Saving people was for heroes, and heroes didn't let their families die while they were off scouting trails for the army. "Storm's not letting up," he said instead. "You can't go anywhere tonight. Maybe not tomorrow either." "I wasn't planning to." Rebecca's voice firmed up strength, returning with warmth and food. "Mr. Thornton?" "Caleb?" "Caleb." She held his gaze. "I don't have money. I don't have anything to pay you with. But I can work. I can cook, clean, mend. I'm good with animals. I can—" "You can rest." Caleb stood uncomfortable with the gratitude in her eyes. "We'll figure the rest out when you're not half dead." "I need you to understand," Rebecca said, and there was steel in her voice now, the steel that had carried her 20 miles through hell. "I won't be a burden. I won't take charity. If we stay, we earn our keep. You got 3 kids who need to heal before they can earn anything. Then I'll work for all 4 of us." Caleb studied her. Pride. Fierce, unbreakable pride. The kind that kept you alive when everything else said to lie down and quit. He respected that. "Fine, but not tonight. Tonight you sleep." Rebecca opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. Nodded. The exhaustion was winning, dragging her down despite her will. "Where?" she asked. "I don't want to take your bed." "Wasn't offering." Caleb gestured to the main room. "You 4 sleep here by the fire. I'll be in the workshop if you need anything. You don't have to." "I know." He moved to the door, grabbed his coat. Rebecca's voice stopped him. "Caleb." He turned. Her green eyes shimmered in the firelight, full of something he couldn't name. Relief, gratitude, hope. Dangerous things, all of them. "Thank you," she said simply, "for opening the door." Caleb looked at her, at the boys curled up together like puppies, at little Lily finally falling into real sleep under her mountain of blankets. 4 people who shouldn't be alive, who were alive because he'd made one choice he couldn't explain. "Get some rest," he said, and stepped out into the storm. The cold hit him like a fist, but he welcomed it. Clear. Honest. Cold didn't pretend to be anything but what it was. He made his way to the workshop, shut the door, and sat down hard on the bench. The forge had gone completely dark. Outside, the wind howled its fury, and inside, Caleb Thornton sat in the ruins of his solitude and tried to figure out what the hell he'd just done. He'd survived 2 years by not feeling, by hammering iron and carving wood and talking to ghosts, by existing in the space between living and dying, never committing to either one. And tonight, in one moment of weakness or strength, he couldn't tell which he'd let 4 strangers into that space, 4 strangers who needed him. Caleb looked down at his scarred hands, saw them shaking. "I can't do this," he told the darkness. "I can't save anyone. I already proved I can't." But even as he said it, he knew it was too late. The door had been opened. The choice had been made. And somewhere in that cabin, wrapped in his dead wife's blankets, 4 people were sleeping who believed Caleb Thornton was the answer to their prayers. God help them all. Morning came gray and cruel. The blizzard had spent itself during the night, leaving behind a silence so complete it felt like the world had ended and forgotten to tell anyone. Caleb woke stiff and sore on the workshop floor, where he'd finally collapsed around dawn. He'd spent most of the night carving mindless automatic, and now wood shavings covered him like strange snow. The piece in his hand had taken shape, without his permission, a small bird wings spread mid-flight. He stared at it. Margaret used to say his hands knew things his head didn't, that he carved what he needed to see, not what he planned. He didn't want to think about what this bird meant. Caleb stood, joints protesting, and brushed off the shavings. The workshop was freezing. He should light the forge. Instead, he pocketed the wooden bird and headed for the cabin. The door opened before he reached it. Rebecca stood in the doorway, wrapped in his coat, looking like she hadn't slept at all. Her hair hung loose around her shoulders, dark with streaks of early gray. In daylight, Caleb could see she was younger than he'd thought, maybe 30, though hardship had aged her. Pretty in a way that had nothing to do with softness. "You're up early," Caleb said. Force of habit. She stepped aside to let him in. "The children are still sleeping. I didn't want to wake them." Inside the cabin looked different. She'd cleaned. The dishes he'd left in the basin for 3 weeks were washed and stacked. The floor was swept. The blankets were folded. She'd even organized his shelf of tin cups. "You didn't have to do that. I told you, I earn my keep." Rebecca moved to the stove where she'd somehow gotten coffee brewing. "I found beans in the cellar. Hope you don't mind." "Cellar?" Caleb rubbed his face. He'd forgotten he had a cellar. "No, that's fine." She poured 2 cups, handed him one. Their fingers brushed. Rebecca pulled back quickly. "I should check on Lily." She moved to where the children slept, still huddled together for warmth, even though the fire had kept the cabin comfortable. Caleb watched her kneel beside the little girl, brush hair back from her forehead, with a tenderness that made his chest ache. Lily stirred, opened her eyes. When she saw her mother, relief flooded her small face. "Mama," she whispered, voice hoarse. "I'm here, baby. Mama's here. I was cold." I know you were." Rebecca gathered her up, held her close. "But you're safe now. We all are." Wyatt woke next, jerking upright like he'd been caught sleeping on watch. His eyes found his mother immediately, then his siblings, then Caleb. "Morning," Caleb said. "Sir?" Wyatt stood, keeping himself between Caleb and his family, despite the fact that Caleb had saved them. Protective. Always protective. Smart kid. Jesse woke last, slow and groggy. He blinked at the cabin like he couldn't remember where he was, then smiled, the first real smile Caleb had seen from any of them. "We made it," Jesse said, wonder in his voice. "We really made it." "Yeah." Wyatt's voice cracked. "We did." Rebecca closed her eyes, pressed her face into Lily's hair. Her shoulders shook once hard, then stilled. When she looked up again, her face was composed. "We should talk," she said to Caleb. "About arrangements. After breakfast." Caleb moved to the stove, started pulling out ingredients. Eggs from his chickens, 3 left, barely enough. Bacon from last fall's pig. Bread that was going stale. He worked quickly, efficiently, aware of 4 pairs of eyes watching his every move. The children ate like they'd forgotten what food was. Rebecca ate slowly, carefully, watching them with that same fierce attention, making sure they got enough before she took more for herself. "When did you last eat?" Caleb asked her. "Before last night." "Yay." Rebecca didn't answer right away. Finally, 4 days, maybe 5. "Christ. I had a little jerky. I gave it to them." Of course she did. After breakfast, Wyatt and Jesse volunteered to clear plates. Lily stayed close to her mother, holding her hand like she might disappear if she let go. Caleb didn't blame her. "The storm's passed," Caleb said. "But the road's buried. Won't be clear for 3-4 days at least." Rebecca nodded. "Then we stay until it clears. And I work." "What do you need done?" "Rebecca. Mrs. Hartwell." Caleb raised an eyebrow. She flushed. "I'm sorry. That was rude. But we're not. I need you to understand. I appreciate what you've done, more than I can ever repay. But I won't pretend to be something I'm not. I'm a woman alone with 3 children. People already think the worst. I won't give them ammunition." "Who's people? There's nobody out here but us and the wind." For now, Rebecca's jaw set. But eventually, we'll go to town. Eventually, people will see. And they'll have questions. Let them question. You don't know what it's like. Her voice went quiet. Being a woman without a man. The looks. The assumptions. The way decent folk cross the street so they don't have to acknowledge you. Caleb was silent for a moment. Then, my wife died 2 years ago. Fever. Took my daughter too. Sarah. She was 5. Rebecca's face softened. I'm sorry. After people came by, brought food, said nice things, but then they stopped coming. I was broken. Broken things make people uncomfortable. They don't know what to say, so they stop saying anything at all. He met her eyes. I know what it's like to be looked at like you're already gone. Rebecca studied him, really looked at him maybe for the first time. You opened the door last night, she said, when you didn't have to, when it would have been easier not to. Why? Caleb thought about the wooden bird in his pocket, about hands that carved things heads didn't plan, about 3 knocks that should have been easy to ignore, but weren't. Don't know, he said honestly. Maybe I was tired of pretending ghosts were enough company. A smile ghosted across Rebecca's face, sad but real. Well, she said, thank you for being tired of ghosts. Before Caleb could respond, Lily appeared at Rebecca's side. She looked up at Caleb with those solemn eyes and held out something small. A rag doll. Worn almost to nothing, one button eye missing stuffing coming out at the seams. This is Hope, Lily said, her voice barely audible. That her name? Lily nodded. Mama says we gotta have hope, even when it's hard. Caleb crouched down to Lily's level. Up close he could see how much she looked like Sarah. Different coloring. Lily was dark, where Sarah had been fair, but the same delicate features. The same way of looking at the world, like it was full of wonders and terrors in equal measure. Your mama's right, Caleb said. Hope's important. Do you have hope? The question punched through him, out of the mouths of babes. I'm working on it, he said. Lily considered this, then carefully tucked Hope back into her arms. Hope's scared of loud noises, and the dark, but she's brave when she needs to be. Sounds like someone else I know. Lily's lips curved, almost a smile. Wyatt called out from the other side of the room. Lily, come help Jessie with the blankets. Lily looked at Caleb one more time, then scurried off. When Caleb stood, Rebecca was watching him with an unreadable expression. You're good with her, she said. Had practice. Sarah. Yeah. The name still hurt to say. She was everything. I can tell. Rebecca's voice went soft. The way you look at Lily. Like you're seeing someone else. I'll try not to. No, don't. Rebecca shook her head. It's not a bad thing. It means you loved your daughter. That matters. That makes you the kind of man who opens doors in storms. Before Caleb could figure out how to respond to that, Wyatt appeared. Mr. Thornton, sir. There's something wrong with the chickens. Caleb frowned. What kind of wrong? Come see. What then? Outside, the world had transformed. Snow covered everything in smooth white drifts that sparkled in weak sunlight. Beautiful and deadly. One more day in the storm, and Rebecca wouldn't have made it. The chicken coop was half buried. Caleb waded through snow to the small door, yanked it open. 3 chickens huddled inside, alive but barely. The water had frozen solid. No food in the trough. I forgot, Caleb said, disgusted with himself. I forgot to check them yesterday. You were busy saving us, Rebecca said from behind him. She'd followed despite the cold, despite not having proper boots. That's not an excuse. Yes, it is. She pushed past him, scooped up one of the chickens. The bird clucked weakly. They're alive. We can fix this. For the next hour they worked together. Caleb broke the ice, refilled the water. Rebecca found grain in the barn, scattered it while cooing at the chickens like they were babies. The kids helped carrying armfuls of fresh straw to line the coop. Lily made friends with the smallest chicken, a scrawny brown hen that perched on her shoulder. "This one's name is Clucky," Lily announced. Jessie snorted. "That's a terrible name." "It's perfect." By the time they finished, the chickens were roosting contentedly, and Lily was beaming. Caleb stood back watching them work and felt something crack in his chest. This is what I lost. Not just Margaret and Sarah, but this, the noise, the chaos, the life, the feeling of being needed for something other than survival. "Caleb." Rebecca stood beside him, close enough he could smell pine and wood smoke on her hair. "You all right?" "Yeah." His voice came out rough. "Just been a while since the place felt lived in." Rebecca looked at the cabin, the barn, the snow-covered land stretching to the horizon. "It's beautiful here. Lonely, but beautiful." Loneliness was the point. Was. Caleb met her eyes. "Don't know yet." A moment passed between them. Understanding. Recognition. Two people who'd run from different things and ended up in the same place. Then Wyatt called out, "Ma, someone's coming." They turned. In the distance, a rider emerged from the tree line. Dark horse, dark coat, moving with purpose toward the cabin. Caleb's hand went to his hip, found the pistol that wasn't there. He'd left it inside. "Get the children in the house," he said quietly. Rebecca's face had gone pale. "Dalton." "Your husband." "No." The word came out sharp as a knife. "My nightmare." The rider was close now, close enough to see the cruel set of his jaw, the expensive cut of his clothes, the way he sat his horse like he owned everything he looked at. Dalton Hartwell had found his family, and the real trouble was just beginning. Dalton Hartwell dismounted with the practiced ease of a man who'd spent his life taking what he wanted. His boots hit the snow without sound, and he stood there for a moment surveying the cabin like he was calculating its worth down to the nails. "Well, well." His voice carried across the distance, smooth as whiskey and just as poisonous. "Found you." Rebecca's hand gripped Caleb's arm. Her fingers dug in hard enough to bruise. "Get the children inside," Caleb said again, not taking his eyes off Dalton. "He'll follow." "Then let him." Wyatt had already moved. He grabbed Jesse's collar, hauled him toward the cabin. Lily stood frozen, staring at the man on the horse with eyes gone wide and terrified. "Lily, baby, come here." Rebecca's voice shook. The little girl didn't move. Dalton smiled. "Hey there, Lily girl. Ain't you gonna say hello to your papa?" Lily turned and ran. Not to her mother, to Caleb. She crashed into his legs and wrapped her arms around his knees, face buried in his coat. Something flickered in Dalton's expression. Anger. Wounded pride. "That's real nice," he said. "Real nice, Beck. Teaching our daughter to run from her own father." "You're not her father." Rebecca's voice came out steady now, cold and clear. "Fathers don't abandon their children in blizzards." "I went for supplies." "You went to a saloon. Don't insult me with lies." Dalton's smile widened, but his eyes stayed flat, dead. "You always were dramatic. Making mountains out of, get off my land." Caleb's voice cut through the air like an axe through frozen wood. Dalton's attention snapped to him. Really looked at him for the first time. Took in the broad shoulders, the scarred hands, the way Caleb stood like he'd faced down worse than drunk gamblers and lived to tell about it. "Your land." Dalton stepped forward. "And who might you be? The man telling you to leave." "Interesting." Dalton's eyes flicked to Rebecca, back to Caleb. "How long's it been, Beck, week 2, and you already got yourself a new man? That was fast even for you." Rebecca's face flushed red. "You son of a—" Caleb held up one hand. She stopped. "Mr. Hartwell," Caleb said, keeping his voice level. "I'm gonna explain this once. Your wife and children showed up at my door half dead from cold. I took them in because that's what decent people do. They're staying until the road's clear. Then they can decide where they want to go. But you're leaving. Now. Dalton laughed. Actually laughed. Or, what you gonna shoot me in front of the children? If I have to. The laughter died. Dalton's hand drifted toward his hip where a gun hung in a fancy holster that had never seen real use. Don't. Caleb's voice dropped to something quiet and terrible. I was a cavalry scout for 8 years. Fought Comanche Sioux and men meaner than you'll ever be. You draw that gun, you better kill me with the first shot. Because there won't be a second. Silence stretched between them. Wind whispered through the snow. Somewhere in the distance, a crow called. Dalton's hand moved away from his gun. This ain't over, Beck. He swung back onto his horse. I got rights, legal rights. Those are my children and you're my wife. Law says so. The law can go to hell. Maybe. Dalton gathered his reins. But I'll be back, with papers, with the sheriff if I have to. And then we'll see who's staying and who's leaving. He wheeled his horse around and rode off, kicking up snow in his wake. Nobody moved until he disappeared into the trees. Then Rebecca's knees gave out. Caleb caught her before she hit the ground. She didn't cry, just stood there in his arms, shaking like the earth beneath her feet had turned to water. I thought we were safe, she whispered. I thought if we got far enough away. How'd he find you? I don't know. I was so careful. We didn't go through towns, didn't talk to anyone. Her voice cracked. He must have tracked the wagon. Or someone saw us. Someone always sees. Lily still clung to Caleb's leg. He could feel her trembling through his coat. Let's get inside, he said. The cabin felt smaller with all of them crowded in it. Wyatt paced by the window, jaw-clenched fists opening and closing. Jesse sat in the corner, knees drawn up, looking younger than his 7 years. Lily wouldn't let go of Caleb, even when Rebecca tried to take her. It's okay, baby, Rebecca murmured. Mama's here. I want Caleb. Lily's voice was muffled against his coat. Something in Rebecca's face crumpled. Pride. Or maybe hope. Caleb couldn't tell which. He's got work to do, sweetheart. You need to... She's fine. Caleb lowered himself into the chair by the fire, Lily still attached to him. We're all fine. They weren't. They all knew it. Wyatt stopped pacing. He's coming back. Yeah. With the law. Probably. Can he do that? Wyatt's young face was hard with fury. Can he just take us, after what he did? Law says a man's got rights to his wife and children. Caleb kept his voice steady. Doesn't matter what he did. Matters what he can prove. That's not fair. No, it's not. Rebecca stood by the window where Wyatt had been staring out at nothing. I should leave, tonight. Take the children and go before he comes back. You won't make it 3 miles in this snow. Then we die trying. Better than going back with him. The casual way she said it made Caleb's blood run cold. She meant it. She'd rather die than let Dalton Hartwell have her children. Nobody's dying. Caleb shifted Lily in his lap. We got time. 3-4 days before the roads are clear enough for Dalton to bring the sheriff. We use that time to figure this out. Figure what out? Rebecca turned from the window. There's no figuring. The law's the law. He's my husband. They're his children. Unless... She trailed off. Unless what? Unless he's not my husband anymore. Caleb understood. Divorce. Would need grounds. Witnesses. Money for a lawyer. We got none of those. Rebecca's laugh was bitter. And even if we did by the time it went through, he'd already have taken them. Wyatt moved closer. What if we tell the sheriff what he did? How he left us? You think the sheriff's going to take a woman's word over a boy's word? Rebecca shook her head. They'll say I'm hysterical, that you're confused, that Dalton was doing his best in a hard situation. So we just give up. Wyatt's voice rose. We just let him win. We don't give up. Caleb stood careful not to dislodge Lily. We fight smart. Rebecca's right, sheriff won't believe her word alone. So we get other words. Proof. What kind of proof? The kind that shows a pattern. Dalton didn't just wake up one day and decide to abandon his family. Men like him, there's always a history. Debts, fights, women. We find that history, we got leverage. Rebecca stared at him. You'd do that for us. I'd do it for anyone who needed help. But we're not just anyone. Her voice went soft. We're strangers who showed up and turned your whole life upside down. Caleb looked at Lily finally asleep in his arms, at Jesse curled in the corner, at Wyatt standing tall despite the fear in his eyes, at Rebecca who'd walked through hell to keep her children safe. You stopped being strangers last night, he said. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Neither of them was ready to name. Before anyone could respond, Jesse spoke up from his corner. I'm hungry. The tension broke. Rebecca laughed, a real laugh this time, warm and surprised. Of course you are. Growing boys are always hungry. Growing girls too. Lily mumbled, half asleep. All right. Rebecca moved to the kitchen. Let me see what I can... She stopped. Caleb, you got any flour? Should be some in the barrel. It's empty. Beans too. And the bacon we had this morning was the last of it. Caleb swore under his breath. He'd been meaning to go to town for supplies before winter hit hard. Then Margaret and Sarah died, and going to town meant answering questions he didn't want to answer. So he'd put it off, and off, until his stores ran down to nothing. I'll hunt tomorrow, he said. Should be deer in the woods if this snow hasn't driven them too far south. I can help. Wyatt straightened. I know how to track. He stopped, face darkening. Someone taught me. Your father, Caleb asked gently. He ain't my father. Not anymore. Wyatt's jaw set. I don't care what the law says. Rebecca moved to her son, put her hands on his shoulders. Baby? Don't call me that. I'm not a baby. I'm 9 years old and I can help. I can provide for us. We don't need him. Wyatt's voice shook with the effort of not crying. We don't need any man. Hey. Caleb crossed to them, Lily still in his arms. Your mama's the bravest, strongest woman I ever met. She got you 3 through a blizzard that would have killed grown men. But brave don't mean you gotta do everything alone. Sometimes brave means letting people help. Wyatt looked up at him with those 2 old eyes. Why are you helping? You don't even know us. Don't have to know you deserve better than what you got. But what if... Wyatt's voice cracked. What if he comes back and takes us anyway? What if all this is for nothing? Caleb knelt down, meeting Wyatt, eye to eye. Then we'll have fought. We'll have stood up and said, no, this ain't right. And that matters, Wyatt. Even if we lose, fighting matters. Wyatt's face crumpled. He tried to hold it in, tried to be strong, but the tears came anyway. Rebecca gathered him up and he sobbed into her shoulder, like the child he still was under all that forced bravery. Jesse started crying too. Then Lily woke up and joined in, and Rebecca just held them, all her own tears falling silent, and let them break. Caleb stood there feeling useless and awkward, this family's grief too big for his small cabin. He didn't know what to do with his hands. Didn't know if he should stay or give them privacy. Then Rebecca reached out and grabbed his hand. She didn't pull him closer, didn't ask him to join their huddle. Just held his hand like an anchor, like she needed to know someone else was there holding steady while her world fell apart. So Caleb stayed and held on. Eventually the crying stopped. The children fell asleep right there on the floor, exhausted by fear and emotion. Rebecca carefully extracted herself, laid them out more comfortably, covered them with blankets. When she stood, her face was dry but ravaged. I need air, she said. She grabbed her coat. Caleb's coat really the one she'd been wearing since she arrived and stepped outside. Caleb followed after a moment. He found her by the barn face turned up to the sky. The sun was setting, painting the snow in shades of pink and gold, beautiful and cold and indifferent to human suffering. "I'm a coward," Rebecca said without looking at him. "That's the stupidest thing I've heard all day. I ran. I should have stayed and fought him. Should have gone to the law, found a lawyer, done it right. But I was scared. Scared he'd kill me before I got the chance. So I ran. And now look, he found us anyway, and I got nothing. No plan, no money, no proof. Just 3 terrified children and borrowed charity." "It ain't charity." "Then what is it?" She turned to face him, eyes blazing. "What do you call taking in strangers, feeding them, protecting them from the man who has every legal right to take them back? I call it being human. Humans don't do this. Humans look out for themselves. Some do, some don't." Caleb moved closer. "My wife used to say there's 2 kinds of people in the world, the ones who close doors and the ones who open them. I spent 2 years being the first kind. Then you knocked. Why'd you answer?" He'd been asking himself that since last night. Rolled it over in his mind while he carved wood and stared at the dark. Why had those 3 knocks cut through 2 years of grief when nothing else could? "Don't know," he admitted. "Maybe I was tired of being alone. Or maybe I heard something in those knocks that reminded me who I used to be. Before you lost everything." "Yeah." Rebecca was quiet for a moment. Then, "I lost everything too. Not all at once like you. Slow, piece by piece. First it was my pride, then my hope, then my sense of self. By the end, I didn't even recognize the woman in the mirror. She was just someone who survived. Someone who took the hits and kept breathing because her children needed her to. That woman walked 20 miles through a blizzard. That woman got lucky. If you hadn't opened that door. But I did. But you might not have. And then what? Then my children would have died because I was too proud to ask for help sooner. Too scared to go to town where people knew Dalton. Too stupid to see I was leading them toward death instead of away from it." Her voice broke on the last word. Caleb reached out and pulled her into his arms before he could think better of it. She stiffened. For a moment he thought she'd push him away. Then she collapsed into him and wept. Not the silent tears she'd cried before. This was raw, ugly. The kind of crying that came from a place so deep it had no bottom. She shook with it, soaked his shirt with it, made sounds that barely seemed human. And Caleb just held her. Let her break. Let her be weak for the first time probably since her children were born. When the storm finally passed, she pulled back, wiping her face with shaking hands. "I'm sorry. I don't usually..." "Don't apologize. I'm supposed to be strong. For them." "You are strong. Strongest person I know." Caleb caught her hand before she could turn away. "But strong don't mean you never break. It means you break and then you get back up." Rebecca looked at their joined hands like she couldn't figure out how they got that way. "I can't ask you to risk yourself for us," she said quietly. "If Dalton comes back with the law and you're still helping us, you could get arrested, charged with kidnapping or harboring a fugitive or something." "I know." "Then why?" "Because it's right." Caleb squeezed her hand once, then let go. "And I ain't done much that's right in the last 2 years. Maybe I'm overdue." Rebecca studied his face in the dying light. "You're a good man, Caleb Thornton. I'm a man who opened a door, that's all." "No." She shook her head. "It's not all. It's everything." They stood there as the sun finished setting, as the temperature dropped and the stars began to appear. 2 broken people trying to figure out if their pieces might fit together long enough to save something worth saving. Finally, Rebecca shivered. "We should go in. Check on the children." Inside the cabin was dark except for the fire. The children were still asleep, tangled together like puppies. Caleb added wood to the fire while Rebecca lit a candle. "I'll take first watch," Wyatt said from the shadows. They both jumped. The boy was sitting up, back against the wall, eyes alert. "You should sleep," Rebecca said. "Can't. Not until I know he's really gone." Caleb understood. "He's gone for tonight, but yeah. Keeping watch is smart. I'll spell you in a few hours." Wyatt nodded, then hesitated. "Mr. Thornton, sir. What you said before, about fighting even if we lose. You really believe that?" "I do. Even if it don't change nothing." "It changes you," Caleb said. "Every time you stand up instead of laying down, it changes who you are. And that matters more than any law or any sheriff or any man like Dalton Hartwell." Wyatt absorbed this. "My real father died when I was 4. Fever. I barely remember him. But Mama says he was good, says he would have fought for us. I'm sure he would have. Dalton ain't good, never was. Mama married him because we needed someone, but needing someone don't make them good." The wisdom in those words coming from a 9-year-old boy cut deep. "No," Caleb agreed. "It don't." Rebecca had gone still, listening to her son with something like wonder on her face. "When'd you get so smart?" she asked softly. Wyatt shrugged. "Had to. Someone had to take care of things when—" He stopped. "When I couldn't," Rebecca finished. "Oh, baby, you shouldn't have had to." "But I did, and I can keep doing it. I can keep us safe." "I know you can, but you shouldn't have to do it alone." Wyatt looked at Caleb. "We ain't alone, not right now anyway." "No," Rebecca said. "Right now we're not." The rest of the night passed quiet. Wyatt kept watch until exhaustion claimed him around midnight. Caleb took over, sitting by the window with his old service rifle across his lap. He didn't expect Dalton to return tonight, but expecting and preparing were different things. Rebecca woke around 3, found him still watching. "You should sleep," she whispered. "Can't." "Why not?" Because every time he closed his eyes, he saw Lily's face, Sarah's face, the two of them blending together until he couldn't tell where memory ended and present began. Because he'd failed one little girl, and the thought of failing another made his chest constrict until he couldn't breathe. But he didn't say any of that. "Just restless," he said instead. Rebecca sat down across from him. "Tell me about them, your wife and daughter." "Why?" "Because you knew them. And we're living in their space. I want to know who they were." Caleb was quiet for a long time. He'd avoided talking about Margaret and Sarah for 2 years. Avoided even thinking their names. As if silence could make the loss hurt less. It hadn't worked. "Margaret was a teacher," he finally said. "Smart as hell. Smarter than me by miles. She could have married someone better. Someone with more money or prospects. But she chose me. Never understood why. Maybe she saw something in you that you couldn't see in yourself. Maybe." Caleb's throat tightened. Sarah was 5 when she died. Just learned to read. She'd sound out every word she saw. Signs, labels, even the whiskey bottles in town. Drove Margaret crazy, but she was so proud. "She sounds perfect." She was. They both were. And I wasn't there when they needed me. I was out scouting for the army, making money we didn't need, trying to build something bigger when what we had was already enough. His voice cracked. "I came home to graves." Rebecca reached across the space between them and took his hand. "It wasn't your fault. Wasn't it I left them? Chose work over family." "You chose to provide for your family. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Yes." Her grip tightened. "My first husband Wyatt and Jesse's father, he died providing for us, working himself to death in the mines so we'd have food, so we'd have a future. That wasn't weakness. That was love." "And Dalton?" Rebecca's face hardened. "Dalton only ever provided for himself. Everything else was just—" She struggled for words. "Just decoration. Lily's his by blood, but he never wanted her. Wanted sons. When I gave him a daughter instead, he looked at me like I'd failed some test. He's a fool. He's a monster. Rebecca pulled her hand back, wrapped her arms around herself. And I let him into our lives. I chose him. That's on me. You chose survival. I chose wrong. Then we'll unchoose it. Caleb leaned forward. Tomorrow I ride to town. Find out what Dalton's been up to. Who he owes. Who he's crossed. Every man like him leaves a trail of people he's wronged. We find those people, we got our proof. And if we don't find anything, we will. Rebecca wanted to believe him. He could see it in her eyes. But belief had been beaten out of her by years of disappointment. I used to be someone, she said softly. Before Wyatt was born. Before I was a wife or a mother. I taught at a girls' school in St. Louis. Had plans, dreams. Thought I'd travel, write books, make something of myself. What happened? Life happened, love happened, then death, then survival. And somewhere in all that, I forgot who I was before. Became just someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's victim. You're not a victim. Then what am I? Caleb looked at her, really looked, at the strength in her jaw, the determination in her eyes, the way she'd carried 3 children through impossible conditions and never once considered surrender. You're a fighter, he said. Maybe you forgot. But your children didn't. They see it every day. Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. I'm so tired of fighting. I know. I just want peace. Want to wake up without fear. Want my children to have childhoods instead of survival. Then we get you that. Whatever it takes. She laughed soft and broken. You say that like it's simple. It ain't simple. But it's possible. Is it really? Or are we just... She stopped, shook her head. I'm sorry. It's late. I'm just tired and scared and... Hey! Caleb caught her hand again. You got every right to be scared. But you don't have to be scared alone. Not anymore. The words hung between them, full of implications. Neither was ready to examine. Finally, Rebecca nodded. Thank you. For everything. For not turning us away. For believing me. For... Her voice caught. For seeing me. Hard not to see you, Rebecca Hartwell. Something shifted in her expression, something soft and dangerous and full of possibilities that terrified them both. Then Jesse cried out in his sleep. The moment broke. Rebecca went to her son, soothed him back into quiet dreams. When she turned back, the vulnerability was gone. Armor back in place. You should rest, she said. Long day tomorrow. Yeah. But neither of them moved. Outside, the wind picked up. Snow began to fall again, light just a dusting. Inside, the fire crackled and children breathed, and 2 damaged people stood on opposite sides of a room that suddenly felt too small and too large all at once. Finally, Caleb stood. I'll be in the workshop if you need anything. Caleb. He stopped at the door. When you go to town tomorrow, Rebecca said, be careful. Dalton's got friends, men who owe him or fear him. They won't take kindly to someone asking questions. I've handled worse than drunk gamblers. I know, but... She hesitated. But we need you. The children need you. So don't do anything stupid. Stupid's relative. Caleb. He turned back to face her. I'll be careful. Promise. She nodded. Good. He left before he could do something foolish. Like tell her that somewhere in the last day and a half, her family had become his family. That he'd fight Dalton and the law and God himself if that's what it took to keep them safe. Like tell her that when she looked at him, he felt like maybe, just maybe, he wasn't completely broken after all. In the workshop, he tried to sleep. Failed. Carved instead. His hands moved without direction, shaping wood into form and meaning. By dawn, he'd created 3 new pieces. A bird for Jesse, a horse for Wyatt, and for Rebecca, a woman standing tall, head high, facing into wind that couldn't bend her. He looked at the figures in the early light and knew he was in trouble. The kind of trouble that started with opened doors and ended with opened hearts. The kind of trouble that could save him or destroy him, maybe both. Morning came with a sky so blue it hurt to look at. Caleb saddled his horse while the children watched from the porch, bundled in blankets like small ghosts. Rebecca stood behind them, arms crossed tight against the cold. "You don't have to do this," she said for the third time. "Already told you I do." "Then take Wyatt. He knows the town, knows which men run with Dalton." Caleb shook his head. "Need you all here. Together. Safer that way." Wyatt stepped forward. "I can help. I ain't scared." "I know you ain't, but your mama needs you more than I do." Caleb swung into the saddle. "You're the man of the house while I'm gone. That means keeping watch, keeping everyone safe." The responsibility settled over Wyatt's shoulders like a weight. He straightened. "Yes, sir." "Good boy." Caleb looked at Rebecca. "I'll be back before dark. Door stays barred. Anyone comes, you don't answer unless it's me." "How will I know it's you?" "I'll knock 3 times. Pause. Then twice more." Rebecca nodded. Her face was pale but determined. What if something happens? What if Dalton... "He won't come today. He's setting his trap, gathering his people. Give him another day at least." Caleb hoped he was right. "But if he does show you got my rifle, remember what I showed you last night? Aim low, squeeze, don't pull." "That's right." He'd spent an hour after midnight teaching her to shoot. Her hands had shaken, but her aim was true. Natural shooter. "You won't need it, but if you do, I'll use it." Something in her eyes told him she meant it, that she'd kill to protect her children without hesitation. The realization should have frightened him. Instead, it made him respect her more. "I'll be back soon," he said. The ride to Redemption Ridge took 2 hours through snow that the sun was already turning to slush. Caleb's horse picked her way, carefully testing each step. The town appeared gradually through the trees, a collection of wooden buildings huddled together against the emptiness, like they were trying to keep warm. The saloon was the biggest structure naturally. The Silver Spur. Caleb had been inside exactly twice in the years since he'd settled here. Once for Margaret's funeral when the church was too small. Once after when grief drove him to drink until Doc Abernathy dragged him home. He tied his horse outside and pushed through the doors. The place smelled like old beer and older dreams. A few men hunched over morning whiskey at the bar. More sat at tables playing cards with the desperate concentration of people who had nothing better to do and nowhere better to be. The bartender looked up. Big man, scarred knuckles, eyes that had seen everything and been disappointed by most of it. "Help you." "Whiskey." The man poured without comment. Caleb threw it back, felt the burn, ordered another. "Don't usually see you in here," the bartender said. "Don't usually come." "Funeral ain't for another month." It took Caleb a moment to understand. Margaret and Sarah had died in January. Every January since Caleb made his pilgrimage to the Silver Spur. Apparently, people noticed. "This ain't about them," he said. "Then what's it about?" Caleb took a long drink. "Man named Dalton Hartwell. Know him." The bartender's face closed down. "Maybe." "That's a yes." "What's it to you?" "He's got business with me. Thought I'd learn what kind of man I'm dealing with." The bartender wiped down the bar, not meeting Caleb's eyes. "Advice, don't deal with him at all." "Too late for that." "Then God help you." The bartender moved away to serve another customer. Caleb nursed his second whiskey and watched the room. The card players were arguing in low voices. Something about a bet. Something about money owed. One of them, thin man with a nervous twitch, kept glancing toward the door like he expected someone. Caleb stood and walked over. "Got room for one more?" The men looked up, sized him up. One of them, older face like worn leather, grinned. "Long as your money's good." "It is." They dealt him in. Caleb played badly on purpose, losing small amounts while he listened to them talk. It didn't take long for Dalton's name to come up. "Heard he's back," the thin man was saying. "Saw him riding out toward the Thornton place yesterday." Caleb's hand tightened on his cards, but he kept his face neutral. "What's he want with Thornton?" the old man asked. "His wife. She ran off with the kids couple weeks back. Heard she shacked up with some hermit." "Thornton ain't a hermit, just likes his privacy." "Same thing." The thin man threw down a card. "Anyway, Dalton's pissed. Says he's gonna get the sheriff involved. Make it legal." "Legal?" The old man spat. "Since when does Dalton care about legal?" "Since his wife's playing house with another man." The thin man's eyes flicked to Caleb. "You know Thornton?" "Met him once or twice." "Then you know he's trouble. Killed 3 men up at Fort Laramie before he mustered out. Maybe more." That was news to Caleb. He'd never killed anyone at Fort Laramie. But he'd killed men. Just not where or when, this thin bastard thought. "Heard different," Caleb said carefully. "Heard he was a good soldier." "Good soldiers don't come home to dead wives." The thin man grinned, showing yellow teeth. "Heard he was drunk for 6 months after, crazy with grief. Started seeing things, talking to people who weren't there." The old man shot him a look. "That's enough, Pete?" "What?" "It's true. Ask anyone." Caleb laid down his cards. "I fold." He stood, dropped money on the table. "Thanks for the game." Outside, the air was cold and clean. Caleb stood on the wooden walkway and tried to control the rage burning in his chest. So that's what the town thought of him. Crazy. Broken. A man who talked to ghosts. They weren't wrong, but hearing it said out loud made it real in a way he hadn't prepared for. "Mr. Thornton." He turned. A woman stood a few feet away, wrapped in a shawl that had seen better days. She was maybe 40 with kind eyes and work-roughened hands. "I'm Martha Boone," she said. "Sheriff's wife." Caleb's defenses went up. "Ma'am?" "I heard you asking about Dalton Hartwell." She glanced around, making sure they were alone. "Can we talk somewhere private?" "Why?" "Because I got things to tell you. Things you need to hear before my husband gets involved." They walked to the general store. Martha led him around back where no one could see. She twisted her hands together, nervous but determined. "My husband's a good man," she started. "But he's practical, goes by the book. And the book says a man's got rights to his wife and children. Even if he abandons them. You'd need proof, witnesses. Dalton's already been to see us, told his version. Said Rebecca ran off with the children to spite him. Said he's been searching for weeks, worried sick." "That's a lie." "I know it is." Martha's voice dropped. "I was there the night Rebecca came through town. 3 months back, before she married Dalton. She was working at the hotel, cleaning rooms, trying to save enough to get west. What happened? Dalton happened. He was staying at the hotel, gambling, losing. One night he got drunk and—" Martha stopped, took a breath. "He forced himself into her room. I heard her screaming. By the time I got there, it was over. She was crying, trying to straighten her dress, and Dalton was buttoning his pants like nothing happened." Caleb's vision went red. "Did she report it? To who? My husband?" He would have asked what she was wearing, how much she'd been drinking, would have found a way to make it her fault. Martha's eyes filled with tears. "I told her to leave town, but then she found out she was pregnant, with Lily and Dalton." Her voice broke. "Dalton said he'd marry her, make it right. Said the baby needed a name. Generous of him. He didn't do it out of kindness. He did it because Rebecca's grandmother had died and left her a piece of land up in Montana. Good land, worth real money. The marriage gave him rights to it. So he married her for property. And she married him because she had no choice. Unwed mother with 3 children. She would have starved." Martha wiped her eyes. "I tried to help. Gave her what money I could spare. But it wasn't enough. Nothing was enough. Why are you telling me this? Martha looked at him with fierce intensity. Because Dalton's been back in town for 2 days. Drinking, gambling, bragging to anyone who'll listen that he's about to come into money, that his wife's grandmother's land is finally going to pay off now that Rebecca can't hide from him anymore. He's planning something. More than planning. He's already got papers drawn up, had some fancy lawyer from Helena draft them. Soon as the road's clear enough for my husband to ride out Dalton's filing for custody. And he'll get it too because the law's on his side. Caleb's mind raced. What if there were witnesses? People who saw him abandon his family? You got any? Working on it. Martha shook her head. You'd need more than witnesses. You'd need him to confess. Or you'd need Rebecca to... She stopped. To what? To get a divorce. But that takes time and money and a lawyer willing to take on a case against a man. Most lawyers won't. Too messy, too likely to make enemies. What if she claimed abuse? Claims ain't proof. You'd need bruises, broken bones, something visible. Martha's face hardened. And even then, some judges would say a man's got the right to discipline his wife. The injustice of it burned. So there's no way. I didn't say that. Martha reached into her pocket and pulled out a small leather journal. This is Rebecca's. She left it at the hotel when she ran. I found it in her old room, kept it safe in case she ever came back. Caleb took the journal. The leather was worn soft with handling. What's in it? Everything. Every time he hit her. Every time he came home drunk. Every debt. Every woman. Every threat. She documented it all. Martha's voice shook. She was building a case, planning to leave. But then something happened. Something that scared her so bad she ran without taking anything. Not even this. What scared her? I don't know. But whatever it was worse than everything that came before. Caleb opened the journal. Rebecca's handwriting covered the pages. Small, precise. The handwriting of a teacher who'd been taught penmanship mattered. The first entry was dated 2 months after their wedding. Dalton came home late. Smelled like perfume that wasn't mine. When I asked where he'd been, he slapped me. Said I had no right to question him. Said I should be grateful he married me at all. Caleb's hands shook. He flipped forward. More entries. Dozens of them. A catalog of cruelty. Lily cried during dinner. Dalton threw his plate at the wall. Said if I couldn't control my bastard, he'd do it for me. Found bruises on Wyatt's arms. He said he fell. But the bruises are shaped like fingers. Dalton lost $500 at cards tonight. Came home raging. Locked me in the cellar for 2 days. The children thought I'd left them. The entries went on, and on, building a picture of a man who wasn't just cruel, but methodically so. Who knew exactly how much pain to inflict without leaving marks that would raise questions. The last entry was dated 3 weeks ago. He knows about the land. Found grandmother's will. He was smiling when he showed it to me. Said once we get to Montana, things will be different. Better. But his eyes said different. His eyes said, once we're far from anyone you know, once we're on property, I'll own I won't have to pretend anymore. I have to run. Have to get the children away. God forgive me, but I have to run. Caleb closed the journal. His vision blurred. When he looked up, Martha was watching him with tears streaming down her face. That's evidence, she said. Real evidence. But what? But my husband won't act on it unless Rebecca presses charges. And if she does, Dalton will know she kept a journal. He'll say she made it up. Say she's unstable. Hysterical. And some judge might believe him. Then what do we do? Martha grabbed his arm. You keep her safe. You keep those children safe. And you make damn sure that when this goes to court, there are enough people on her side that the truth can't be ignored. I don't know enough people. Then find them. There's good folk in this town. People who've been hurt by Dalton. People who'll stand up if someone leads the way. She squeezed his arm. Be that someone, Mr. Thornton. Before Caleb could respond, a voice called out. Martha, You back here." Sheriff Boone appeared around the corner. He stopped when he saw Caleb. His hand drifted toward his gun. "Thornton, what are you doing with my wife?" "Just talking, Frank," Martha said quickly. "Mr. Thornton had some questions about supplies. I was telling him the store's closed today." The sheriff looked between them, not buying it. "That right?" "That's right," Caleb said. "Appreciate your wife's help." "I bet." The sheriff's eyes narrowed. "Heard you got visitors, woman and 3 kids." News travels fast. It does when the woman's married to Dalton Hartwell. That true. She's staying with you. Took shelter during the storm. That a crime? Depends. She planning to stay? Haven't asked her plans. Well, you might want to, because Dalton's filed papers, legal papers, says his wife ran off with his children, says you're harboring them. The sheriff stepped closer. That's a serious accusation, Thornton. So's abandoning your family in a blizzard. You got proof of that. Caleb felt the journal in his pocket. Thought about showing it to the sheriff right now, ending this before it went further. But Martha caught his eye, shook her head slightly. Not yet, not without Rebecca's permission. "I got witnesses," Caleb said instead. "What witnesses?" "The woman, the children. Wife and kids ain't reliable witnesses against a husband. You know that. Then the law's broken. The law's the law." The sheriff's face hardened. "And I enforce it. So here's how this plays out. You got until tomorrow to send Rebecca and those kids back to Dalton. Do it peaceful. Nobody gets hurt. Don't do it." He let the threat hang. "Or what, you'll arrest me." "If I have to." "On what charge?" "Kidnapping, theft, adultery. Take your pick." The sheriff smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I like you, Thornton. You're a good man who's had hard luck. But you're playing a game you can't win. So do yourself a favor. Send that woman packing before you end up in a cell." Martha grabbed her husband's arm. "Frank, you don't know the whole story." "I know enough." He shook her off. "Thornton, I'll be by your place tomorrow morning. Rebecca Hartwell and her children better be ready to go. And if they're not, then I'll take them by force, and you'll be under arrest." The sheriff tipped his hat to his wife. "Martha, get inside. It's cold." He walked away without looking back. Martha stood there stricken. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I tried to talk sense to him, but he won't listen. Dalton's got friends, important friends. They're pressuring Frank." "It's all right." "No, it's not. They'll take those children. They'll give them back to that monster. And there's nothing." Her voice broke. "There's nothing we can do." Caleb gripped her shoulder. "There's always something. You gave me this." He patted the journal. "That's more than nothing." "But what good is it if—" "I'll figure it out. But I need you to do something for me. Anything. Tonight you go through this town. Every person you know who suffered because of Dalton. Every woman he's hurt. Every man he's cheated. Every family he's destroyed. You tell them what's happening. You tell them there's a woman who kept a journal, who documented everything, who's ready to stand up and testify if they'll stand with her." Martha's eyes widened. "You want to expose him? Publicly?" "I want to bury him. That's dangerous. For you. For Rebecca. For—" "Doing nothing's more dangerous." Caleb looked toward the saloon where Dalton was probably inside celebrating his impending victory. "Men like him win because good people stay quiet. Time to get loud." Martha stared at him. Then slowly she nodded. All right, I'll do it. But Thornton, if this goes wrong, if Dalton figures out what we're doing—" "He won't." "You can't promise that." "No," Caleb admitted. "I can't. But I can promise I'll fight. And I won't stop fighting until those children are safe." Martha's face crumpled. She threw her arms around him in a brief, fierce hug. Bless you, Caleb Thornton." Then she was gone, hurrying back toward the main street. Caleb stood in the alley holding Rebecca's journal and trying to figure out his next move. The sheriff would come tomorrow, would bring Dalton, would take Rebecca and the children by force if necessary, which meant tonight was all he had. One night to build a case, to gather people, to turn the tide. He needed help, more help than Martha could give. Caleb walked to the church. It was small, plain, the kind of building that said, "We believe in God, but we ain't got money to prove it." The pastor was inside arranging candles. Old man, bent with age, but his eyes were sharp when they landed on Caleb. "Mr. Thornton, been a while since I saw you at service." "I ain't here for service, Pastor." "I know. You're here about the woman." Word really did travel fast. "You know about her." "Whole town knows. Dalton's been talking to anyone who'll listen. Says you stole his family. He abandoned them." "I believe you." The pastor set down his candles. "I also believe you're about to ask me to do something that'll get us both in trouble." "How'd you know?" "Because you got that look. Same look soldiers get before they charge into battle knowing they might not come back." The pastor smiled. "So, what do you need?" "I need the church, tomorrow night, and I need you to spread word that there's gonna be a town meeting. Public testimony about Dalton Hartwell." "That'll start a war." "War's already started. I'm just making sure we fight it in the open where everyone can see." The pastor was quiet for a long moment. Then, "All right, but on one condition." "Name it." "Rebecca Hartwell has to agree. I won't force her to testify if she ain't willing. This has to be her choice." "Fair enough." They shook hands. As Caleb turned to leave, the pastor called out, "Mr. Thornton, you're doing a good thing, a brave thing, but bravery gets men killed." "I know." "Then why risk it?" Caleb thought about Lily's solemn eyes, Wyatt's fierce protection, Jesse's tentative trust, Rebecca's quiet strength. "Because some things are worth dying for," he said. The ride back to the cabin took forever. The sun was low by the time he arrived. Wyatt was on the porch with the rifle keeping watch like Caleb had told him. "Any trouble?" Caleb called as he dismounted. "No, sir. Been quiet all day." Inside, Jesse was teaching Lily to play checkers with pieces of carved wood. Rebecca stood at the stove stirring something that smelled like heaven. She looked up when Caleb entered, read his face, set down her spoon. "What happened? We need to talk." The children sensed the tension. They gathered close to their mother like small animals sensing a storm. Rebecca put her hands on their shoulders. "Whatever it is," she said, "just say it." So Caleb told them everything. The sheriff's ultimatum, the journal Martha had saved, the plan for a public meeting. By the time he finished, Rebecca had gone pale. "He wants to take us tomorrow," she whispered. "The sheriff. He wants to try. Caleb, he's the law. If he comes with papers, then we show him the journal. We show him what Dalton really is." "It won't be enough. You said so yourself. Without witnesses, without people willing to stand up." "We'll have them. Martha's gathering people tonight. The pastor's arranging a meeting. By tomorrow evening, half the town will know what Dalton did." Rebecca shook her head. "You don't understand. These people, they won't help. They'll look the other way like they always do. Like they did when I was working at the hotel. Like they did when I had bruises I couldn't hide." Her voice rose. "Nobody helps women like me, Caleb. Nobody ever has." "Then we change that." "You can't change people." "No, but I can give them a chance to be better than they've been." Rebecca laughed bitter and broken. "And if they're not, if they side with Dalton like they always do, then what?" "You go to jail. I go back to him. And my children." She couldn't finish, just pulled them closer. "That won't happen," Caleb said. "You don't know that." "No, but I believe it. And I need you to believe it too." Rebecca met his eyes. Why do you care so much? We're nothing to you. Strangers who showed up and turned your whole life upside down. You don't owe us anything. Maybe I do. Caleb moved closer. Maybe I owe you everything. Because before you knocked on that door, I was dead inside, going through motions, waiting for the day I could lie down and not get back up. And then you showed up with your children and your strength and your refusal to surrender. And something in me, his voice cracked. Something in me woke up. Tears spilled down Rebecca's cheeks. Don't say that. Don't make this about more than it is. What is it then? Charity, kindness, a good man helping people in need. It stopped being charity the moment Lily wrapped her arms around my legs, the moment Wyatt called me sir like I was someone worth respecting, the moment you trusted me enough to close your eyes and sleep under my roof. Caleb reached out, hesitated, then gently wiped tears from her face with his thumb. You want to know why I care? Because somewhere in the last 2 days you became my family. All of you. Rebecca made a sound, half sob, half laugh. That's the most foolish thing I've ever heard. Probably. We barely know each other. I know you walked 20 miles through a blizzard. Know you'd die before you let anyone hurt your children. Know you're the strongest, bravest woman I've ever met. He smiled. That's enough. Rebecca stared at him. Then she threw her arms around his neck and buried her face in his shoulder. I'm so scared. God, Caleb, I'm so scared. I know. He held her tight. But you're not alone. Not anymore. They stood like that while the children watched. Finally, Rebecca pulled back. Her eyes were red but clear. The journal, she said. You have it. Caleb pulled it from his pocket, handed it over. Rebecca held it like it might burn her. I didn't remember writing all this, she whispered. I was just trying to survive, trying to document in case I died, so someone would know, so my children would know I tried. We're using it, Caleb said. Tomorrow night, town meeting, everyone who will listen. We're exposing Dalton for what he is. And if it doesn't work? Then we run, take the children and disappear. Montana, Oregon, Mexico if we have to. You'd do that? Give up everything. I already gave up everything 2 years ago. This. He gestured at the cabin at the family crowded in his kitchen. This is getting something back. Rebecca opened the journal. Read a few entries. Closed it. All right, we do this. We fight. Together. Together. She looked at her children. You hear that, babies? We fight. Wyatt stepped forward. I'll testify. I'll tell everyone what he did. Me too, Jessie said. Lily just nodded, clutching hope to her chest. Rebecca's face crumpled again. But this time when she cried, it wasn't from fear. It was from something else. Pride, maybe. Or hope. They ate dinner together, made plans. Caleb carved while Rebecca mended clothes. The children played quietly, sensing the importance of tomorrow, but trusting the adults to handle it. Later, after everyone else had gone to sleep, Caleb and Rebecca sat by the fire. Thank you, she said softly, for believing in me, in us. Thank you for knocking on my door. She smiled. You know what's funny, I almost didn't. I was so scared. Thought maybe you'd turn us away. Thought maybe it was better to die in the snow than risk more rejection. What changed your mind? Lily. She looked up at me with those big eyes and said, Mama, I'm cold, and I thought I have to try. Even if he says no. Even if he slams the door in our faces. I have to try because my babies deserve someone to fight for them. They got someone. They got you. They got us. Rebecca reached over and took his hand. Both of us. Their fingers intertwined. The fire crackled. Outside an owl called. Tomorrow would bring the sheriff. Would bring Dalton. Would bring a reckoning that could end in victory or destruction. But tonight, in this moment, they had each other. And for now, that was enough. Dawn broke cold and clear. Caleb woke to the sound of horses. Multiple horses. Too early for the sheriff, unless something had changed. He grabbed his rifle and moved to the window. 5 riders approached through the melting snow. Dalton rode in front, flanked by men Caleb didn't recognize. Hard men with guns on their hips and nothing good in their eyes. "Rebecca." Caleb's voice was low but urgent. "Get the children. Back room. Now." She was already moving, scooping up Lily, pushing the boys ahead of her. Wyatt grabbed the smaller rifle Caleb had given him the night before. "I'm staying," Wyatt said. "No. I can shoot. You taught me." "Wyatt, I'm staying." The boy's jaw set in a way that reminded Caleb of Rebecca. Stubborn, brave, foolish. "Fine. But you don't fire unless I say. Understand?" Wyatt nodded and took up position by the far window. The riders stopped 20 feet from the cabin. Dalton dismounted with that same easy grace, like he owned everything he looked at. The other men stayed on their horses, hands resting on their guns. "Thornton," Dalton called out. "We need to talk." "Got nothing to say to you." "That's too bad, because I got plenty to say." Dalton smiled. "See, I've been thinking about our situation. You got something that belongs to me. I want it back. Now we can do this easy, or we can do this hard. Your choice." Caleb stepped onto the porch, rifle in his hands. "Sheriff, know you're here. Sheriff's got no say in this. This is between you and me, man to man." "Man to man." Caleb's voice dripped contempt. "You wouldn't know man to man if it bit you." Dalton's smile widened, but his eyes went flat. "Careful, Thornton. You're outnumbered." "I'm outgunned. There's a difference." One of the riders laughed. "He's got balls, Dalton. Gotta give him that. Balls don't stop bullets." Dalton took a step forward. "Last chance. Send out my wife and kids. Do it peaceful. Nobody gets hurt." "Your wife ain't here." "Don't lie to me. I know she's inside. Can smell her fear from here." Something in Caleb snapped. He raised the rifle, aimed it directly at Dalton's chest. "Get off my land." The riders drew their guns, 5 against 1. But Caleb's rifle never wavered. "You gonna shoot me in front of witnesses?" Dalton spread his arms wide. "Go ahead. Make me a martyr. Make my kids orphans. That what you want? What I want is for you to leave." "Can't do that. See, I got papers." Dalton pulled a folded document from his coat. "Legal papers, signed by a judge in Helena. Says my wife and children are to be returned to me immediately. Says anyone harboring them is guilty of kidnapping." "Papers don't mean nothing if the judge who signed them don't know the truth?" "The truth." Dalton laughed. "The truth is my wife's a liar, a whore who spreads her legs for any man who'll feed her. The truth is, she ran off with my children to shack up with a crazy hermit who talks to ghosts. The truth is..." The gunshot cut him off. Everyone froze. Smoke drifted from the window where Wyatt stood, rifle still raised. "You shut your mouth about my mother." Wyatt's voice shook but held firm. "You shut your filthy mouth or the next one goes through your head." Dalton looked at the boy. Something ugly crossed his face. "You little bastard. I'll tan your hide so raw. You won't touch him." Rebecca stepped onto the porch. She'd been listening. Now she stood beside Caleb, straight and tall and terrifying. "You won't touch any of my children ever again." "Beck, honey, come on now." Dalton's voice shifted, turned syrupy. "Let's not do this. Let's not fight in front of the kids. You know I love you. Know I love them. I made mistakes. I admit that. But a family stays together. That's what family does." "We're not a family. We never were." "The law says different." "Then the law's wrong." "Maybe." Dalton's hand drifted toward his gun. But the law's all we got. So you can come peaceful or you can come screaming. Either way you're coming. The riders urged their horses forward. Caleb swung his rifle toward them. Stop right there. They stopped, but they didn't back down. This is stupid, one of them said. There's 5 of us. Even if you shoot Dalton, we'll gun you down before you get a second shot. Maybe, but Dalton dies first. That's it right with you, dying for a man who beats women and abandons children. The rider shifted uncomfortably. I ain't dying for nobody. I'm just here for the money. There's more money in staying alive, so turn your horse around and ride away. This ain't your fight. He paid us already. Then earn it by living long enough to spend it. The riders looked at each other, looked at Dalton. One of them spat. Hell with this! I ain't getting shot over domestic disputes. He wheeled his horse and rode off. 2 others followed. That left 2 men and Dalton. Dalton's face had gone red with rage. Cowards. Goddamn cowards, all of you. Not cowards, Caleb said. Just smarter than you. Smart. Dalton laughed, but it sounded brittle. You think you're smart? Think you can hide behind that rifle forever? I got the law on my side. Got judges, got papers. What do you got? A woman who ain't even yours, and 3 kids that hate you. They don't hate me, Rebecca said quietly. They hate you. Dalton flinched like she'd slapped him. I'm their father. You're a monster. And what's he? Dalton pointed at Caleb. You know what this town says about him? Says he's crazy. Says he came home to find his wife and kid dead and lost his mind. Says he sits in that cabin talking to people who ain't there. That's who you're trusting with our children, a madman. Rebecca moved closer to Caleb, close enough their shoulders touched. I'd trust a good man gone mad over a sane man gone evil. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Dalton stared at them. At Rebecca standing beside Caleb. At the way they fit together like they'd been doing it for years instead of days. Something in his face shifted from anger to understanding to pure hatred. You're sleeping with him, he said softly. Already. Not even a week, and you're already spreading your legs for him. What I do ain't your concern anymore. The hell it ain't. You're my wife. Those are my children. And I will burn this whole goddamn cabin to the ground before I let you stay here. Try it. Caleb's finger tightened on the trigger. Please, give me a reason. For a long moment, nobody moved. The wind whispered through the trees. Somewhere, a crow called. The 2 remaining riders watched with the detached interest of men who'd seen violence before and expected to see it again. Then, hoofbeats. More of them. Coming fast. Sheriff Boone appeared through the trees with 3 deputies. His face was grim when he took in the scene. Dalton with his men. Caleb and Rebecca on the porch. Wyatt at the window with a rifle. What in God's name is happening here? The sheriff dismounted. Dalton, you told me you were riding out to talk. This don't look like talking. This man's holding my family hostage. That true, Thornton? No, sir. Rebecca and the children are here of their own free will. Rebecca? The sheriff looked at her. That true you here by choice? Before she could answer, Dalton cut in. Don't ask her. She's confused, scared, don't know what she's saying. I think the lady can speak for herself. The sheriff's voice was sharp. Mrs. Hartwell, I need an answer. Are you being held against your will? Rebecca took a breath. Caleb could feel her trembling. This was it. The moment that decided everything. If she said yes, if she played along with Dalton's story, the sheriff would take her, take the children, and there'd be nothing Caleb could do. But if she said no, if she told the truth, Dalton would fight. Would make this bloody. Rebecca stepped forward. Sheriff Boone, I need to tell you something. About my husband. About what he's done. Beck, don't. Dalton started forward. The sheriff held up one hand. Stay where you are, Dalton. Let her speak. She's going to lie. Make up stories because she's angry I went looking for supplies instead of... I said let her speak. The sheriff's hand moved to his gun, not drawing, just resting there. A warning. Dalton fell silent, but his eyes promised violence. Rebecca's voice shook when she started. 3 weeks ago, my husband took our wagon and left us in the middle of a blizzard. He said he was going for help. But he didn't go for help. He went to a saloon. Spent 3 days drinking and gambling while we froze. That's a lie, Dalton said. I went to the nearest town, asked for supplies, for rescue. Nobody would come because of the storm. You went to a whorehouse, Rebecca continued. Martha Boone saw you. So did half the men in the Silver Spur. They can testify. The sheriff's face changed. Martha saw him. She'll tell you, if you ask her. If you listen to her instead of dismissing her like you always do. Sheriff Boone flinched. Mrs. Hartwell, I kept a journal. Rebecca pulled the leather book from her pocket. 5 years of marriage, 5 years of documentation, every time he hit me, every time he threatened the children, every debt, every woman, every lie. It's all here. She held out the journal. The sheriff stared at it like it was a snake. Don't take that, Dalton said, his voice gone dangerous. That's private property. You got no right. It's evidence. Rebecca's hand didn't waver. Evidence of systematic abuse, of abandonment, of a man who married me for property and stayed for control. Property. The sheriff took the journal, flipped it open, started reading. His face went pale. Jesus Christ. It's lies, all of it. She made it up because she's sick in the head, unstable. Everyone knows women get hysterical, make up stories. You can't trust. There's dates. The sheriff looked up. Specific dates, specific incidents. This ain't hysteria, Dalton. This is documentation. Documentation can be forged. Then we'll verify it. Check with Doc Abernathy. Check with Martha. Check with every person mentioned in these pages. The sheriff closed the journal. And if even half of this is true, you won't just lose custody, you'll hang. Dalton's face went white, then red, then something beyond color. Pure fury. You stupid bitch, he hissed at Rebecca. You stupid, stupid bitch. You just signed your own death warrant. He drew his gun. Everything happened at once. Caleb fired. The bullet caught Dalton in the shoulder, spun him around. Dalton's gun went off the shot, going wild. The 2 remaining riders scattered. The deputies drew their weapons. Wyatt screamed. Rebecca grabbed Lily, and Jesse pulled them behind her. Dalton hit the ground hard, clutching his shoulder. Blood seeped through his fingers. He looked up at Caleb with eyes full of hatred and something else. Fear. You shot me, he said, almost surprised. You actually shot me. Should have killed you. Caleb worked the bolt, chambered another round. Still might. Thornton, lower your weapon. The sheriff's gun was out now, pointed at Caleb. Do it, now. He drew first. I know, but you lower that rifle or this gets worse. Caleb hesitated. Then slowly, carefully, he set the rifle down. The deputies moved in. One kicked Dalton's gun away. Another started wrapping his shoulder with cloth torn from his own shirt. Dalton groaned, tried to sit up. Stay down, the deputy said. That shoulder's torn up bad. You're lucky he missed the bone. Lucky? Dalton spat blood. I'll kill him. I swear to God I'll kill him. You ain't killing nobody. Sheriff Boone stood over him. Dalton Hartwell, you're under arrest. For what? He shot me. For assault with a deadly weapon. For attempted murder. For... The sheriff held up the journal. For about 50 other things documented right here. You can't arrest me. I got rights. I got papers from a judge. Papers don't trump evidence. And this... He shook the journal. This is evidence. Real evidence. The kind that puts men in prison, or on gallows. Dalton's face crumpled, not with pain, with realization. He'd lost. Everything he'd planned, everything he'd worked for, gone in a single moment because Rebecca had kept a journal and Caleb had opened a door. "Please," he said, and for the first time he sounded human. "Please, Frank. We go back. You know me. You know I ain't what she says." "I know exactly what you are." The sheriff's voice was cold. "I just didn't want to see it before. My wife tried to tell me. Other women tried. But I looked away because it was easier. Because men like you make it easy to look away." He gestured to his deputies. "Get him on a horse. We're taking him to jail." They hauled Dalton up. He screamed when they moved his shoulder, screamed again when they tied his hands. But nobody showed sympathy. As they loaded him onto his horse, Dalton looked back at Rebecca. "This ain't over, you hear me? I got friends, got lawyers. I'll get out, and when you do, you'll answer to me." Caleb stepped forward. "You come near this family again, I won't aim for your shoulder." "That's a threat. Sheriff, you heard that. He threatened me." "Didn't hear nothing." Sheriff Boone mounted his own horse. "Mrs. Hartwell, I need you and the children to come to town. Give statements. Make this official." Rebecca nodded. "When? Tomorrow. Today's been." He looked at Dalton, bleeding and broken. "Today's been enough." They rode off. Dalton slumped in his saddle, muttering curses and threats that the wind carried away. The two remaining hired guns followed at a distance, wanting no part of whatever came next. When they were gone, silence fell over the cabin. Caleb turned to Rebecca. She stood frozen on the porch, still holding Lily and Jesse. Her face was blank, shocked. "It's over," Caleb said gently. "You're safe." Rebecca didn't respond, just stared at the blood in the snow where Dalton had fallen. "Mama," Lily's small voice. "Is the bad man gone?" "Yes, baby." Rebecca's voice came out mechanical. "The bad man's gone. Forever." I don't know." "Forever," Caleb said firmly. "He's going to jail, and he's staying there." "You promise?" Jesse asked. Caleb crouched down to the boy's level. "I promise. You promised before, about other things, and you kept those promises." Jesse studied his face. "So I believe you." The simple faith in those words broke something in Caleb's chest. He pulled Jesse into a hug. The boy stiffened, then relaxed, wrapping thin arms around Caleb's neck. "Thank you," Jesse whispered, "for saving us. You saved yourselves. I just opened the door." Wyatt appeared on the porch. He was shaking. The rifle hung loose in his hands. "I almost shot him. When he called Mama those names. But you didn't." Rebecca pulled him close. "You were brave. So brave. But you didn't have to kill. That's good. That's—" Her voice broke. "That's so good, baby." They stood like that for a long time. A family that had been broken beginning to heal. Slowly, painfully, but healing nonetheless. Finally, Rebecca looked at Caleb. "You shot him." He drew first. "You could have killed him." "I know." "Why didn't you?" Caleb met her eyes. "Because your children have seen enough death, enough violence, enough. They didn't need to see me kill their father, even if he deserved it." Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. "He would have killed you. If you'd missed. If the sheriff hadn't come. He would have killed all of us. But he didn't. And he won't. Not ever again." She crossed the distance between them in 3 steps and kissed him. Hard. Desperate. Full of everything she couldn't say with words. Caleb froze, shocked. Then his arms came around her, and he kissed her back with 2 years of loneliness and grief and hope, finally finding voice. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, the children were staring. "Gross," Jesse said. Wyatt grinned. "About time." Lily just smiled, holding Hope close. Rebecca laughed a real laugh, bright and startled. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. That was inappropriate. Don't apologize. Caleb touched her face. Don't ever apologize for that. But we barely know each other. And the children know what matters. He looked at Wyatt, Jesse, Lily. Don't you? They nodded in unison. We know you're good, Wyatt said. We know you saved us. We know Mama smiles when you're around. That's enough. Rebecca started crying. Happy tears this time. Relief tears. Tears that washed away 5 years of fear and pain and hopelessness. Caleb held her while she cried. Held her and the children who crowded close. Held his new family together while the sun climbed higher and the snow continued to melt. And somewhere in the distance, Dalton Hartwell rode toward a cell that would hold him until justice was served. Later, after everyone had calmed down and gone inside after hot coffee and cold hands warming by the fire, Rebecca pulled Caleb aside. What happens now? She asked. The sheriff said we have to give statements. Go to town. Face. She couldn't finish. We go to town, Caleb said. We tell the truth. We make sure everyone hears it. And then we come home. Rebecca looked around the cabin. This is your home, not ours. It's ours if you want it to be. Caleb, I know it's fast. No, it don't make sense. But I also know I don't want you to leave. Any of you. He took her hands. Stay. Not because you're afraid. Not because you need protection. But because this is where you belong. You mean that? Every word. Rebecca was quiet for a long moment. Then, I have nothing to offer you. No money, no property. Just 3 children and more baggage than any woman should carry. You have you. That's everything. You barely know me. I know enough. Know you're strong. Know you're brave. Know you walked through hell and came out still fighting. He smiled. Know you kiss like you mean it. She laughed despite herself. I shouldn't have done that. Not in front of the children. They didn't seem to mind. They're children. They don't understand. They understand love when they see it. Caleb pulled her closer. Question is, do you? Rebecca looked up at him, saw the truth in his eyes, the hope, the fear, the same thing she felt reflected back at her. I think I'm starting to, she whispered. He kissed her again, softer this time, gentler, a promise instead of desperation. When they broke apart, Wyatt was watching from the doorway with a smirk. You two done? He asked. Because Lily wants to know if Caleb's gonna be our new pa. Rebecca flushed red. Wyatt? It's a fair question. Caleb looked at the boy. What do you think? Would that be all right with you? Wyatt considered. You gonna treat Mama good? Better than good. You gonna protect us? With my life. You gonna teach me to track deer and shoot straight and all the things a pa's supposed to teach? Every bit of it. Wyatt nodded slowly. Then yeah, I reckon that'd be all right. Jesse appeared behind him. Me too. I like Caleb. He tells good stories. When did I tell stories? Caleb asked. Last night, when I couldn't sleep. You told me about being a scout, about seeing eagles and tracking buffalo. It was good. Caleb didn't remember that. He'd been half asleep himself. But apparently his grief-addled brain could still function enough to comfort a scared child. That was something. Lily wandered over Hope in her arms. Hope says you're her papa now. She says you smell like wood and safety. Rebecca covered her mouth with her hand, trying not to laugh. Well, Caleb said seriously, if Hope says so, then it must be true. Lily beamed. That's what I thought. They spent the rest of the day preparing for tomorrow. Caleb cut firewood. Rebecca mended clothes. The children played in the snow, their laughter carrying across the empty land like music. As the sun set, they gathered around the fire. Caleb carved while Rebecca read aloud from a book she'd found on his shelf. The children listened, transfixed. Even when the story ended, nobody moved, content just to be together. Finally, Lily yawned. "I'm tired." "Then sleep, baby." Rebecca stood. "Come on, boys, time for bed." They grumbled, but obeyed. Within minutes, all three were curled up under blankets, breathing deep and even. Rebecca returned to the fire, sat beside Caleb, leaned into his warmth. "Tomorrow's going to be hard," she said. "Yeah. Dalton's friends will be there, his lawyer, people who'll say I'm lying, that the journal's fake, that I'm just a scorned woman trying to ruin a good man. Let them say it. Truth's on our side. Truth doesn't always win. No, but it's worth fighting for anyway." Rebecca sighed. "You're an optimist. I'm a realist who's tired of being a pessimist." She laughed softly. "Fair enough." They sat in comfortable silence. Outside, an owl hooted. Inside, the fire crackled, and children dreamed, and two damaged people held onto each other like lifelines. "Caleb!" Rebecca's voice was barely audible. "What you said before, about me staying, about this being home, did you mean it?" "Every word. Even knowing what comes with me, the gossip, the judgment, the people who'll say I jumped from one man to another too fast, who'll call me names and question my character. Let them talk. And if they're right, if I am moving too fast, if this is just gratitude or fear or—" He kissed her quiet. "It's not." "How do you know?" "Because I spent 2 years in darkness, and you're the first light I've seen." He touched her face. "I'd be a fool to let that go." Rebecca's eyes shimmered. "You're a good man, Caleb Thornton." "I'm trying to be." "You're succeeding." They sat together until the fire burned low, until the moon rose high and cold, until exhaustion finally claimed them both. Tomorrow would bring the town meeting, would bring testimony and judgment and the full weight of Dalton's crimes made public, would bring justice, hopefully, or more pain. But tonight they had this moment of peace, this small family built from desperation and hope. And for now, that was more than enough. The church was packed by the time they arrived. Every pew filled. People standing against the walls. Faces Caleb recognized from town, and faces he'd never seen. Word had spread fast. The whole county had come to witness Rebecca Hartwell's testimony against the man who'd terrorized her for 5 years. Rebecca's hand tightened on Caleb's arm as they walked through the doors. The crowd went silent. Eyes tracked their movement. Some sympathetic, some curious, some openly hostile. "I can't do this," Rebecca whispered. "There's too many people." "Yes, you can." Caleb covered her hand with his. "You've already done the hard part. This is just telling the story." "What if they don't believe me?" "Then we make them believe." Pastor Williams stood at the front, Martha beside him. The sheriff sat in the first pew, Rebecca's journal on his lap. When he saw them enter, he nodded once. Respectful, acknowledging. Dalton wasn't there. Still in jail, shoulder bandaged, waiting for trial. But his presence hung over the room like smoke. His lawyer sat in the front row, a thin man with sharp eyes and a sharper suit. 2 of Dalton's friends flanked him, arms crossed, faces set. The children stayed close to Rebecca. Wyatt walked ahead like a small soldier. Jesse clung to his mother's skirt. Lily held Caleb's hand so tight her knuckles went white. They took their seats. The pastor cleared his throat. "We're here today for truth," he said. His voice carried to every corner. "Not for gossip, not for judgment, but for truth. Mrs. Rebecca Hartwell has asked to speak, to share her story, and we as a community have a duty to listen." "This is a farce." Dalton's lawyer stood. "My client isn't here to defend himself. This entire proceeding is prejudicial and your client is in jail for attempted murder," the sheriff cut in. "He'll get his say in court. Today belongs to Mrs. Hartwell." The lawyer sat down, jaw tight. Pastor Williams gestured to Rebecca. "Whenever you're ready, ma'am." Rebecca stood. Her legs shook. Caleb wanted to stand with her, but this was her fight, her moment. He could only watch and pray she found the strength. She walked to the front, turned to face the crowd. For a long moment she said nothing. Just looked at all those faces, all those eyes, judging, waiting. "My name is Rebecca Hartwell," she finally said. Her voice was soft but steady. "And for 5 years I lived in hell." Someone in the back coughed, otherwise silence. "I married Dalton Hartwell because I was pregnant and alone and terrified. My first husband had died. I had 2 boys to feed. And Dalton—" She paused. "Dalton seemed like salvation. He offered marriage, respectability, a father for my children." "And you took advantage of his kindness," one of Dalton's friends called out. "Trapped him with another man's kids." Rebecca flinched but didn't look away. "I was honest with him, told him about my boys, about my situation. He said it didn't matter, said he'd love them like his own." Her voice hardened. "That was the first lie." She reached into her pocket and pulled out the journal, held it up so everyone could see. "This is 5 years of documentation, 5 years of abuse, of violence, of systematic destruction of everything I was." She opened it to a random page. January 14th, 1873. Dalton came home drunk. Said I'd embarrassed him at church by talking to another man. Locked me in the cellar for 2 days. The boys thought I'd abandoned them. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Dalton's lawyer stood again. "Objection. That journal could say anything. There's no proof she didn't write it all yesterday." "The dates match incidents documented by others," the sheriff said. "Doc Abernathy's records show Mrs. Hartwell came in with injuries on several occasions. The dates align. Injuries that could have come from anywhere. Injuries shaped like handprints." Doc Abernathy stood from his pew. "Bruises consistent with being grabbed, shoved, struck. I documented it all, even when she claimed she'd fallen." The lawyer's face reddened. "Circumstantial. It's evidence." The sheriff's voice brooked no argument. "Continue, Mrs. Hartwell." Rebecca flipped through the pages. March 3rd, 1873. Found bruises on Wyatt's arms. Finger-shaped. When I confronted Dalton, he said the boy needed discipline. Said I was too soft. Her voice cracked. "My son was 6 years old." Wyatt stood. "He's telling the truth. Dalton hurt me. Hurt Jesse. Said if we cried, he'd give us something real to cry about." "Sit down, boy," Dalton's lawyer snapped. "Children's testimony is unreliable." "My son doesn't lie," Rebecca said fiercely. "Neither does Jesse. Neither does Lily. They saw everything, lived through everything, and they deserve to be heard." "This is a witch hunt," one of Dalton's friends shouted. "You're turning the whole town against a good man based on the word of a hysterical woman and 3 confused kids." "Then let's talk about facts." Martha Boone stood. Her voice rang clear and sharp. "Fact. Dalton Hartwell spent 3 days in the Silver Spur while his family froze in a blizzard. I saw him. So did every man in that saloon." "I was looking for help," Dalton's friend protested. "He told us—" "He told you he was finally free," Martha interrupted. "Said he'd gotten rid of the burden. I heard him. So did Tom Brennan. So did half a dozen others. Ask them. Go ahead." Tom Brennan stood looking uncomfortable. "It's true. Dalton was celebrating. Said his wife had run off and good riddance. Because she was sleeping with another man," the lawyer said. "My client was hurt, betrayed. He spoke in anger." "She wasn't sleeping with anyone." Caleb's voice cut through the noise. He stood, every eye turning to him. "She was dying. Her children were dying. And your client was drinking whiskey and bragging about being free." "And now she's sleeping with you," the lawyer shot back. Convenient how quickly she moved on, how quickly she found another man to take care of her. "I found a man who treats me like a human being," Rebecca said. Her voice didn't shake now. It burned. I found a man who opened his door when I had nowhere else to go, who fed my children, warmed them, saved their lives. That's not convenience, that's grace." The crowd stirred, people whispering, some nodding, others frowning. "Grace or adultery?" The lawyer pressed. "You're still married, Mrs. Hartwell. Your husband is still alive. Yet you're living with another man, sleeping under his roof, letting him play father to your children. I'm sleeping in his house because my husband left me to die." Rebecca's face flushed with anger. "I'm under his roof because he offered shelter when I had none. And yes, I'm letting him care for my children because he's the first man who's ever done it without expecting something in return." "So you admit you're living in sin?" "I admit I'm living. That's more than I could say 3 weeks ago." The lawyer smiled, thin and cruel. "The law is clear. Adultery voids any claim to marital property, including children. If you've been intimate with Mr. Thornton, my client has grounds to—" "I haven't touched her," Caleb said flatly. "Not the way you're implying." "But you want to." The lawyer's smile widened. "Any fool can see it. The way you look at her, stand beside her, defend her. You're besotted, and she's using that, using you, just like she used my client." "I'm not using anyone." Rebecca's voice rose. "I'm standing here telling the truth, showing evidence, asking this community to see what I've lived through, and all you can do is twist it. Make me the villain. Make me the whore and your client the victim. Because that's what the facts show. The facts show a man who beat his wife, terrorized his children, abandoned them in a storm. That's what the facts show." Rebecca held up the journal. "It's all here. Every word true, every incident documented. And if that's not enough for you, if you'd rather believe a man who draws guns on unarmed people than a woman who's done nothing but survive, then this community has no soul," Caleb finished. He moved to stand beside Rebecca. "I don't know most of you. Haven't been to town much since I lost my family. But I know this Rebecca Hartwell is the bravest, strongest, most honest woman I've ever met. She walked 20 miles through a blizzard to save her children. She kept detailed records because she knew someday she'd need proof. She's standing here now in front of everyone knowing you might not believe her. That takes courage. Real courage. The kind Dalton Hartwell's never had." Silence fell. Heavy. Weighted. Then a woman in the back stood, middle-aged, work-worn. "He hurt me too." Everyone turned. 3 years ago," the woman continued, "I was working at the hotel. Dalton tried to force himself on me. I fought him off, reported it. Sheriff said there wasn't enough proof." She looked at Sheriff Boone. "Said it was my word against his." The sheriff's face went gray. "Mrs. Patterson, You chose to believe a man over a woman, just like you always do." Mrs. Patterson's voice didn't waver. "But I believe Rebecca, every word, because I lived it too." Another woman stood. "He owes my husband $300, gambling debt, keeps promising to pay, never does." A man stood. "He sold me a horse he said was sound, lame within a week. When I confronted him, he pulled a gun." More people stood. More stories. More evidence of a man who'd terrorized this town for years while everyone looked away. Because it was easier. Because he was charming. Because questioning him meant admitting they'd been fooled. The lawyer tried to interrupt, tried to shout them down, but the voices kept coming. A flood of truth that couldn't be damned. Finally, Pastor Williams held up his hands. "Enough. We've heard enough." The crowd quieted. "It's clear," the pastor said, "that Dalton Hartwell has done great harm. To his wife, to his children, to this community. The question now is, what do we do about it?" "We do what's right," Martha said. "We stand with Rebecca, support her, make sure that when this goes to trial, there are so many witnesses, so much evidence, no judge can ignore it." "And if the judge sides with Dalton anyway?" someone asked. "Men have rights, wives don't. Everyone knows that." "Then we change it," Caleb said. We make enough noise that the law has to listen. That's not how the law works. Then we make new law. People looked at him like he was crazy. Maybe he was, but he'd stopped caring about crazy when Rebecca knocked on his door. "I'm filing for divorce," Rebecca said suddenly. Everyone turned back to her. "On grounds of abuse, abandonment. And I'm asking this community to support that petition, to testify, to stand up and say what Dalton Hartwell did was wrong, and we won't stay silent anymore." "You'll never win," Dalton's lawyer said. "Judges don't grant divorces lightly, especially not to women." "Maybe not, but I have to try." Rebecca looked at the crowd. "I have to try because my children deserve better, because I deserve better, and because every other woman in this room who's suffering in silence deserves to see someone fight." Tears streaked down faces throughout the church, women mostly, but some men too, people who'd seen too much, stayed quiet too long. "I'll sign your petition," Mrs. Patterson said. "Me too," another woman echoed. "And me." The voices built, a chorus of support, of solidarity, of people finally saying enough. Dalton's lawyer grabbed his coat. "This is a farce, an absolute farce, and when my client hears, your client will stay in jail," Sheriff Boone stood, "until his trial, where he'll answer for attempted murder, for abuse, for every crime documented in that journal. You're letting a mob decide justice. I'm letting the truth decide justice, something I should have done a long time ago." The sheriff looked at Martha. "I'm sorry, for not listening, for not believing, for failing this town." Martha's eyes shone with tears. "Then do better now." He nodded. "I will, starting with making sure Dalton Hartwell never hurts anyone again." The lawyer stormed out. Dalton's friends followed, muttering threats and curses. But most of the crowd stayed, gathered around Rebecca, offered support, shared their own stories, connected in the way trauma connects people when they're finally allowed to speak. Caleb stood back watching. Wyatt appeared at his side. "Is it over?" the boy asked. "Is he really gone?" "Not yet, but soon." "And then what?" "We go back to the cabin. If your mother wants to." Wyatt looked up at him. "And if she wants to stay forever, would that be okay?" Caleb smiled. "More than okay." "Good. Because I like it there. Feels safe. Feels..." He struggled for words. "Feels like home." "Yeah, it does." They stood together watching Rebecca, surrounded by people who finally believed her, who finally saw her. Not as Dalton's victim, not as a woman who needed saving, but as a survivor, a fighter. Someone strong enough to walk through fire and come out still burning. Hours later, after statements had been taken and promises made, after hands had been shaken and tears shed, they finally returned to the cabin. The children fell asleep almost immediately, exhausted by emotion and hope. Rebecca and Caleb sat by the fire, close but not touching, both processing, both afraid to believe it might actually be over. "Thank you," Rebecca finally said, "for standing with me, for making me believe I could do this. You didn't need me. You were always strong enough. Maybe, but it's easier to be strong when someone's standing beside you." Caleb took her hand. "I'll stand beside you for as long as you'll let me." Forever might be a long time. Not long enough. She laughed softly. "You say the most ridiculous things." "I mean every word." Rebecca turned to face him. "Caleb Thornton, what are we doing? Surviving, healing, building something new. It's been less than a week. I know. People will talk. Let them. It's too fast, too complicated, too..." He kissed her, soft and sure and full of promise. When they broke apart, Rebecca's eyes were wet. That's not fair. Kissing me when I'm trying to be reasonable. Reasonable is overrated. You're impossible. And you're perfect. I'm broken. So am I. Maybe we break in ways that fit together. He touched her face. Stay. Not as my guest. Not as someone I'm protecting. But as someone I love. Rebecca's breath caught. You love me. From the moment you fell through my door and refused to surrender. Yeah, I love you. That's insane. Probably. We barely know each other. I know everything that matters. Caleb, you don't have to say it back. Don't have to feel the same way. I just needed you to know. Needed you to understand that when I say stay, I mean... His voice roughened. I mean forever. I mean build a life here. Marry me when you're free. Let me be father to your children and husband to you and whole again after 2 years of being broken. Rebecca stared at him, tears streaming freely now. You really mean that? Every word. Even knowing I come with 3 children and more baggage than any man should take on, especially knowing that. Even knowing the town will gossip and judge and make our lives difficult? They can try. Rebecca laughed through her tears. You're either the bravest man I've ever met or the most foolish. Can't I be both? I suppose you can. She leaned into him. Ask me again. When I'm free. When the divorce goes through and Dalton's in prison and we've had time to be sure this is real. It is real. Then it'll still be real in 6 months, or a year, or however long it takes. She kissed him, gentle. But yes, when I'm free, ask me again, and I'll give you an answer. Will it be yes? You'll have to wait and find out. Caleb grinned. I can wait. Good. Because my children need to know you're serious. Need to trust this is forever before I let them call you father. They already call me that. Lily does. The boys are more cautious. Smart kids. They are. Rebecca rested her head on his shoulder. We're going to be okay, aren't we? All of us? Yeah, we're going to be better than okay. They sat together as the fire burned low, as the moon rose high, as the world outside turned silver with fresh snow that would melt come morning. The next 6 months passed in a blur of legal proceedings and community support. Dalton's trial was swift and brutal, the evidence overwhelming, the witnesses numerous. He was sentenced to 15 years for attempted murder, another 10 for abuse, the sentences to run consecutively. His lawyer filed appeals. Everyone denied. Rebecca's divorce was granted on grounds of abuse and abandonment. The judge, a woman from Helena, who'd seen too many cases like Rebecca's, made it clear that the law might favor men, but justice favored the truth. When the papers came through, Rebecca stood in the cabin holding them with shaking hands. I'm free, she whispered. Actually free. Caleb had been carving by the fire. He set down his knife and crossed to her. Then I have something to ask you. He dropped to one knee. Wyatt appeared from the back room. Finally. Jesse and Lily crowded close, watching with wide eyes. Rebecca Hartwell, Caleb said. Will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving every single day that you made the right choice when you knocked on my door? Rebecca looked at her children. They nodded eagerly. Say yes, Mama, Lily urged, so we can be a real family. We're already a real family, Rebecca said softly, but she looked at Caleb with tears streaming. But yes, 1,000 times yes. He stood and kissed her while the children cheered. While snow fell outside and the fire crackled warm. While everything broken began to heal and everything lost began to be found. They married in the spring. The whole town came. Even Sheriff Boone, who'd spent 6 months making amends by actually enforcing the law fairly. Martha stood as witness, crying happy tears. The children gave Rebecca away. Wyatt walked her down the aisle with Jesse and Lily beside him. All 3 beaming. All 3 finally safe. The ceremony was simple, honest, full of promises that both of them intended to keep. When the pastor pronounced them husband and wife, when Caleb kissed his bride, when the crowd erupted in cheers, Rebekah whispered against his lips, "Thank you for opening the door. Thank you for knocking." Years later, after more children had come, and the cabin had been expanded, and Wyatt had learned to track, and Jesse had learned to read, and Lily had grown into a fierce young woman who took no one's cruelty, they would sit by the fire and tell the story. The story of a woman who walked through a blizzard, of a man who opened a door he'd sworn to keep closed, of 3 children who survived because their mother refused to quit, of a community that finally woke up and stood for something right. It wasn't a fairy tale. There were hard days, painful memories, scars that didn't fully heal, but there was also laughter, there was safety, there was love, the kind that's built on truth and tested by fire and comes out stronger for the burning. Dalton died in prison 8 years later, infection from an old wound. They didn't attend the funeral, didn't mourn, just held each other and agreed that some doors once closed should stay that way. Rebekah never regretted knocking. Caleb never regretted answering. And their children grew up knowing that family wasn't about blood or law or obligation. Family was about the people who stood beside you in storms, who opened doors when they could have stayed closed, who loved you, not despite your brokenness, but because they understood it. And on cold winter nights, when snow fell soft and the fire burned bright, Caleb would pull Rebekah close and whisper the same words he'd said that first night. "I got you." And she'd whisper back, "I know. I've always known." Because some doors open exactly when they're supposed to. Some knocks echo louder than thunder. And some families are forged not in blood, but in choice. The choice to love, to fight, to build something beautiful from the ruins of what came before. That was their story, their truth, their hard-won, battle-scarred, absolutely unshakable forever. And it was enough, more than enough. It was everything.